Welcome to the Safety in Numbers podcast. I'm your hostess, Sheila Hansen. This is episode 18, The Importance of Failure and Its Consequences. Learning how to fail and keep going is critical. I mean, have you ever failed at something? People learn so much more from failure than they do success. Learning how to complete a difficult task is also critical, because have you ever had to do something that you didn't want to do because it was difficult or it was uncomfortable? But learning how to persevere in those situations is the goal. To be able to finish and work through that is our goal. When a child experiences difficulties and failure when they're young and they are coached through it rather than rescued from it, they learn a lot. Some of the things they learn are things like failure is not the end of the world. They also learn how to look critically back on their own choices so that they can make different and hopefully better choices in the future. 3, they learn that difficult emotions are a part of life and they're not a reason to completely shut down and quit. 4, they learn that oftentimes success is not far behind failure, and success after you experience several failures feels so good. Failure makes up most of the stones in the road to success. Think about that. Everyone fails more than they succeed because once you succeed, generally you're finished with the task. So you move on. If you fail, you keep trying when you know how to persevere. So if you know how to persevere, you keep on trying. So I know what you're thinking. How do you do this? Because nobody wants to face things that are difficult and uncomfortable, but there is a way to do this. I call it the Andy Griffith method. And hopefully I will be able to insert part of an episode. It's season 2, episode 15. It's called Bailey's Bad Boy. And it's the one that has, he played the Hulk. I can't remember his name right now. But he's in it. He's the guest. How does this work? How do you coach a child through failure? Well, it begins with kind of a discussion of values and emotions. And what are things you do and how do you deal with those emotions? You're going to acknowledge that it feels bad, and then you're going to ask them a series of questions just to kind of get them thinking and more along the lines and not getting stuck. Thinking along the lines of moving through failure rather than getting stuck by failure. It works like this, something like this. This is a kind of sample of how it might work. So you acknowledge that it doesn't feel good, and then you give them a short time. So like, wow, this really stinks. I am so sorry that this happened. That would be what I would say if I were talking one-on-one with a child. What I would do when I would speak to a whole class. So after a test, we'd always have a discussion about the results of the test. And I'd do a little statistics things. How many A's, how many B's, how many C's, how many D's, how many F's, so on and so forth. And I'd congratulate the A's and B's and give them their little award passes that I give. And then I would talk about the ones that didn't do so well. And I would say, okay, you've got 10 seconds to feel bad about it. And I'd give them 10 seconds. And sometimes I'd say, wow, I really tried hard. I did my best, and this is all it is. This stinks. And, just kind of allow them a little bit of time. I have them like mumble to themselves if they wanted to, but then I'd be like, all right, time for feeling sorry for yourself and feeling bad is done. Move on. And then I would say, okay, one-on-one to a child, I'd ask them, so what do you think happened? Because you studied, right? If they say things like, oh no, or they start to blame somebody else for their own actions, then I would ask them, well, what was your part in this? What was your responsibility in this? Well, mom had to work late, and so I had to babysit my little brother and sister. Or the dog got sick, and we had to take him to the vet. And there's always something that to them is the perfectly good excuse for not preparing themselves for a difficult task. And I would always point out that, yeah, man, those are difficult things to work through. What else could you have done? You were here at school, right? Yeah. So, well, I had a study hall at the beginning before school. Were you here at that time? Just asking them questions. I'm not pointing a finger and saying, you didn't come to the study group I had before school. You didn't do that. You didn't do this. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, did you? Or what about this? And then I'd always ask them the questions. Did you really do your best? Is this really your best? Because if it is, then we need to try a different plan. If it's not, that's probably why it failed. And then I would ask them a question that is critical to them moving forward. Like, yeah, you've screwed up. Okay, we've all done that. If you could go back and make different choices, what would you do? And have them, and when a child is first being asked these questions, they will often kind of balk or come up blank because they're not used to asking themselves these questions. After a while, they'll start to see that, oh yeah, well, I could have reviewed my vocabulary before I went to bed. It doesn't take very long. I could have, reviewed my study guide while I ate breakfast this morning. I could have come in for tutoring instead of going to the gym. Or I could have brought my breakfast down to your room and we could have studied, because I would let kids do that all the time. But asking them what they could have done, what choices they could have made differently, is huge, because it gets them, again, to look at what their behavior was that was under their control. And then you ask another critical question. What are you going to do next time? And that is truly all about, now you get to try again. And I would never allow my students to retake a test that they had already taken, because that's rescuing them from the failure. And I never allowed them to do that. And it was written in my syllabus that tests are not allowed to be retaken. So what I would say, okay, so that one's done. So we're going to make that one of those stones into the path of success. What I did there didn't work. What am I going to do next time? So if you want to do good on the next test, what are you going to do differently with homework? What are you going to do differently with studying? What are you going to do differently? Because, we didn't just start the unit and the next day have a test. We've been on this unit for 2 weeks. So yeah, stuff comes up. Family stuff comes up all the time, but it's something you got to learn to work with. And we kind of talk about those kinds of things. So what will you do next time is a great question to help them to see that they do have a choice for their future. It's not just written in stone and they have no choice. How you end the conversation is important. Because if they feel like you're just trying to push them around or tell them what to do, and that they're just, you don't really understand me, you're just a teacher and you don't get it, and you don't understand my family, and if that's the mode they're in, the way you end it can help to shift their thinking to a little bit more higher level of problem solving. So I would say something like this. I know this is not a pleasant thing to go through, and I am glad, though, that you're learning these skills to work through difficult situations, because you're going to have a lot of difficult situations in life. I want you to know that I believe that you can work through this and that you can do better that next time. I know you can. And I want you also to know that I am always going to be here to give you good advice, because I want you to grow up to be strong. So those kinds of words can help them to realize that you're not just trying to bully and push them around and boss them around and tell them what to do, but you truly do have their best interest at heart. Now, is it guaranteed? No. Teenagers are moody creatures, and sometimes they're very open to hearing things, sometimes they're not. They're generally more open to hearing the advice from a teacher than they are from a parent. Just because of the age that they're in, they're starting to separate from their parents, so they will attach themselves to other people just to kind of see what it's like from their perspective. So sometimes you will have pretty good success. Other times, even with the exact same student, you won't, and it depends on the day. This kind of questioning technique teaches a child to reflect on what they did to contribute to their own success or even their own failures. It also teaches the child to see the failure as a common part of learning and as a reference for what to do differently next time. So if you think about a baby learning how to walk, They fall a lot before they ever take their first successful steps. And even after they do a few successful steps, they continue to fall over and over and over again until they develop the strength and the coordination and the balance to be able to walk just like everybody else. This kind of questioning technique also teaches a child that their mistakes or their failures are not a statement of their own personal value. It's outside of them. It's a learning. It's like a problem in a textbook. It's them learning the process of whatever it is they're trying to succeed at. And this kind of questioning technique also teaches that failure is not the end of an adventure. It's just the part that keeps you on the right path. So you fail because you got off the path. Well, now you're back on the path. You fail again. Oh, you started to get off the path again. It's just kind of like a bumpers on a bowling alley. This technique also teaches the child trying and failing is often the best way to just gather information about whatever it is you're trying to do. I also want you to celebrate when they give a valiant effort, even if they don't reach their goal or even if they fail. If they tried really hard and they didn't reach their goal, that's them learning more about themselves. If you think about the Rocky movies, I love the Rocky movies because they teach this principle exceedingly well, especially Rocky 1. So he knows that he doesn't have much of a chance to beat Creed in that movie. And if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you what happens. But all Rocky decided to do, he's like, I just want to go the distance. I just want to complete this, face this difficult task, and stand up in the end. And he did it. He lost the fight, but he stood up under that kind of pressure, and he learned a lot from that. This kind of questioning technique also teaches your students to put forth their best effort, shed any signs of perfectionism, and great goals are always worth the pain of the journey. If you think about Po in Kung Fu Panda at the very beginning, he's got to go up this enormous set of stairs to get up so that he can watch the Fabulous Five do their thing and see who's going to be chosen. He starts out by dragging his noodle cart, and he finds out this ain't working. So what's he do? He leaves his noodle cart behind, and he starts running up the stairs. Does he make it to the top of the stairs still running? No. He pulls himself over the edge, pulls himself up by his hands, and then he's there. He has to face more challenges, and he keeps facing those challenges and facing those challenges, and that is what made him the best choice for, I can't remember the title of the person who got to look at the scroll. In this video, I've talked about coaching a child through failure, and there are several parts to it. First of all, acknowledge that failing doesn't feel good. And we go to the second thing. I said, I want you to think about what really happened. In your perspective, did you actually give it your best? And then third, I asked them, what could have you done differently? If you had the chance to go back, what would you do differently? And then I would ask them, what are you going to do? Because I can't do it for them. They are the ones that have to make that choice. It's all a matter of choice. And how you look at failure is also a matter of choice. Is failure a strike against your character, strike against your value, or is it just a stepping stone on the way to your next success? Think about it. Become a coach. Coach them through it. Thanks for watching. See you in class.